All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. Today I've got my friend, Koray. He goes by many names, KTG, Uncle Koray, and Koray Tugberk GUBUR. Koray, thanks for
Yeah,
being here. How are you?
thank you. I'm good, and I hope you are also okay too. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's not too many people that can get as nerdy and technical about SEO as you out there. So for the listeners tuning in, today's conversation is going to be more technical. It's going to be centered around some changes to information retrieval. We're going to be looking at some patents together and talking about them, and also hopefully getting a chance to cover some of the future of search and where we see things going. So today we're going to start with something new that was released on June 25th called Vera. Making multi-vector retrieval as fast as single vector search. And that's a mouthful, but let's unpack that. I'm just going to share my screen. We'll pull this up on the screen and let's talk about it. So Koray, this just came out just about like a week and a half ago. What do you think is significant about this patent or this technology?
Lots of things are actually important about that, but I must tell, for the last nearly 10 years, nothing that Google does is technically that much surprising, because they always actually hint what they are about to do. And since this research is also overlapping with a core update, most probably what they do in this specific research paper will be reflected on the changes that you are going to be seeing with the June core update as well. So Google AI department, or DeepMind, however you call them, and also the Meta, technically they are actually competing with each other. And this idea actually came first time from the Meta. And Meta has a concept that they call dense retrieval. Dense retrieval is slightly something different than actually vector retrieval, but it is also connected to, again, the vectorization. When we talk about the dense retrieval, it is technically about actually densifying and embedding space and choosing a centroid and indexing especially that centroid and connecting all the other vectors to that specific dense representation. When it comes to the multi-vector retrieval, it means that actually rather than focusing on a single point or a single embedding in the vector space, imagine that you are actually calculating the relevance from multiple different type of points together with also the multiple points in the query as well. There is a kind of total relevance calculation in that case, let's say in the page wide. But these are technically cost increasing methods. That's the main problem. So that's why when we look at the Vera or multi-vector retrieval or dense retrieval, that part actually is not new at all. And from Google, there is one more research. I don't remember the exact name, but it is coming from, again, I guess Michael Bendersky and his team actually from Google did that research. On that one too, they were actually creating two different dense or two different vectorization in a single query phrase. This way, they were able to bring the Nike shoes and also the blue shoes into a single index. And they don't have to always actually bring the blue Nike shoes this way, because there might not be enough level of products or enough level of pages just for, let's say, creating enough level of relevance for that specific query angle. That's why they were trying to understand if they bring also blue shoes from Adidas, how the click satisfaction actually changes. If the click satisfaction doesn't change when they bring the Adidas shoes as blue, it means that the term blue should be heavier than the Nike. But if they bring, for instance, blue Nike socks, they see that the click behaviors change tremendously, which means that the first, the color, the second, the brand is actually more important than, let's say, the last word in that area or the specific noun in that section. This part is about query processing and query term weight calculation. According to the chosen vectors or embeddings as a color or as a brand, imagine that we'll look two different type of index. One index is actually retrieved just for the brand. One index is retrieved just for the color. And imagine that you're able to do a kind of collective or a kind of collaborative relevance configuration or relevance understanding by looking at both of the vectorizations around these two different centroids. That's why at the beginning I explained the dense retrieval, because maybe it is slightly hard to explain with with just the hands, but imagine that these are just the words in your web page: shoes, socks, blue, Nike, and Adidas. If you have these words in a single passage, let's say, in this case, they will need to choose the most important word among all these candidates. Let's say they choose the Nike. It means this is the centroid. The other words or other embeddings in this case will be just around this one. If this is the centroid, it means that you can create relevance to the blue Nike shoes. But at the same time, you need one more, which is the blue also should be one of the other centroids in this case. This eventually comes back to the point that actually understanding what type of a vectorization method they are using, but it's not that easy. That's why some of the Googlers explicitly and publicly say that even if you understand vector search, at the end of the day, it comes to your basic skills of estimation, because you can have the same corpus. The corpus means collection of the documents. And if you just use a different method, you will get different embeddings or different vectorizations. We don't know what they use exactly there, I can say. But at least we can estimate. For instance, we can see that if the color starts to become really important for the shoe-like entities, then you can actually increase their appearance, or you can prioritize them earlier in your document as well. That's one of the reasons that we usually created a context or a concept called macro context and macro semantics. Rather than spending time for teeny tiny sentences or teeny tiny details, actually optimizing the beginning of the page, where the context mainly comes from and the contextual hints are coming from, is actually more important. And you can try to optimize your, let's say, relevance based on this understanding, which also means they will be creating more granular indices. Let's say when you search yellow Nike shoes for teenagers and blue Nike shoes for, let's say, kids, they might be bringing same results today. I didn't check, by the way, I just make it up. But tomorrow they can bring way much more documents than before, just because they are able to check multiple vectors and vector combinations. So it will be creating a smarter Google for the same cost and the same speed.
Right. So moving that's really interesting, Koray. I think the shift, I think one of the most important parts to bring it back to practical SEO for how people are practicing SEO. When we are used to seeing tools like, let's say, TF-IDF based optimization of content, right? Where we're taking just the words in the document, we're extracting them out, we're looking at how frequently we find these terms and their weightings, and then optimizing our content to optimize and increase those specific TF-IDF scores. That's sort of the old classic information retrieval index.
Definitely.
That's very old. And a lot of SEO tools are still built using that type of frame. The new frame is we're using vectors, we're using embeddings. And instead of Google chunking the documents paragraph by paragraph and putting them into this TF-IDF driven index, we're moving to now in these vectors. And what they said in this paper is that the way that they wanted to use these vectors to basically take your query and find this passage on all the documents on the internet and find the ones that are the most relevant. This is very computationally intensive, very expensive to do the dot product similarity at scale. So the big breakthrough here is that they found a mechanism to simplify that compute so they can run it at a much larger scale, identify the passages that are the most relevant to the query, and provide them as a, let's say, like a first pass of ranking. And this is the first pass. And then they're able to use more fine-tuned algorithms to refine the rankings further. But at least they're able to use this to find more relevant documents and passages and improve the quality of search for the same, as you said, same cost of compute. So that, I think, was
a few more points there. The thing is, Google is always a hybrid search engine, actually. It doesn't mean that they are not using any phrase-based methods anymore. We should actually always think that they will be using anything that actually works for them for a cheaper cost. And TF-IDF, of course, is a very old example, but its first competitor was actually BM225, which is another method of understanding relevance.
similar.
And if they use TF-IDF, it means longer documents will be ranking higher, because if your document is longer, since you have more space, it means your TF-IDF score will be going higher. If they use BM225, shorter documents is actually going to be ranking higher. For a long time, we have seen that actually they are using both, because many people optimize. These are very old topics in SEO, especially from semantics point of view. But many people optimize their documents for TF-IDF. They were mistaken because they were also using BM205. So that was one of the main tricks there. The second thing is that if you look at the Anna Patterson from Google, she, last time when I checked, she was the head of Google Ventures. Basically, she is hunting the AI SaaS for Google for investing. And she is the creator of the phrase-based indexing. And the phrase-based indexing patterns and the methods, they are created at the same time with the knowledge graph and word to vec, which means that it's not like this or that. It's always a hybrid methodology that they are using. I also mentioned in my Chiang Mai SEO speech too, these indexing tiers are also important too. For the most important indexes, they can use most advanced and most expensive algorithms. For the lower tiers, they can use old methods again. But I would always assume and believe and know that they will definitely use anything that helps them for a lower cost. And phrase-based methodologies, they're always faster and lower at the cost too. So I would tell there that it will be always a hybrid methodology around vectors. Word to vec, I guess, is announced like 2014. 14 or 12, I'm not sure. But it was the first time that actually they were changing every word to do vectors and every phrase to the entities. It's true that they are transforming it, but they wouldn't give up from either PageRank or either from phrases as well. They will still keep functioning on a certain level.
Yeah, but this is good. I think overall, it's going to make it harder to essentially manipulate the search engines with content and some of the old SEO tricks that have become less and less effective. So this is, I think, a positive direction for the industry and people who are actually spending the time to create good content and following, the semantics. And that's I know a big emphasis of your course and your training.
Definitely.
Yeah, and to kind of bring it home, there's just one visual I think it's kind of helpful for people if you're struggling with some of these concepts, just to understand the difference between the old regime, the old style, and the new one. I'm just going to pop this up. A simplification. So the old TF-IDF inverted index, taking our queries, looking at the terms or the keywords inside the content, and then linking those back to documents, versus Vera, which is making queries into vectors and analyzing passages and documents, which are also vectors and which lead back to documents. So kind of a better frame to sort of understand the difference. But as Koray, you point out, like, this has been a transition that's been happening for a while. This isn't just the first time we moved in this direction. This has been a procession, and this is just a big improvement.
But one main thing there is, it's not like just a single vector. That's the main point of the Vera, actually, because they can actually judge the document based on multiple different vectors, based on these different vectoral combinations too. That's the main difference of the Vera in that case. But
they're combining all the vectors together into one representation. Yeah,
definitely. So that's one of the main things there. And the second thing is the similarity doesn't always means more relevance. Many people also confuse the vectoral similarity with the actual semantic relevance too. Two things might not be similar at all, but they might be really relevant to each other. That's also slightly different working style in information retrieval too, like the antonyms, as I always say, buy car and sell car, they are opposite, they are not similar, but they are highly relevant too. So that's why the cosine similarity doesn't always means that actually you will be getting a higher relevance because of that too. I mean, many people create some different understandings of that. They just vectorize the entire site, and they get the topicalities from these vectors, and they assume sometimes that if this system gives higher score for this topic, you will increase in the rankings as well. Theoretically, it's sometimes on a level it makes sense, but it all comes what method you use for vectorization and topicality, and what method Google uses. If these two systems are close enough, then you can judge yourself from the Google's eyes. But otherwise, it's like Google uses another glasses, you use another lenses, and you will say that this topic is about fridge. Google will say it's about the fresh fruit, not the fridge. Mm-hmm. So it's the kinds of a tricky part of the semantics also exists there.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but even the topics and their boundaries shift over time. So even if Google looked at it one way 3 months ago, and the latest algorithm update, it could have shifted. And so
That's true.
it's hard.
I can actually give a great example for that. So we created a case study, the latest one, transcriptor. It's not hard to calculate, but it makes, I can't tell the exact number, of course, but it makes more than $6 million a year right now. I can't give the subscribers amount to, but we are working like around 4 years. It became a really global success. The problem there is we started to rank the most important page, which is the homepage, directly for the most important term, which is transcribe audio to text. And we also have a sub page, which is actually audio to text. And there is one more, which is convert audio file to text. For a really long time, audio to text or transcribe audio to text and also audio file to the text, basically, they didn't cannibalize because they were vectorized different before. But after a point, audio file and audio and transcribe and convert, they became so close and similar to each other, they started to cannibalize because Google actually merged the indexes. Then our homepage and the sub pages, they started to fight. Yeah. We came to the 6 million clicks actually amount, then we dropped to the 4, then we started to come back again thanks to cleaning the page. The same also can happen, like, let's say you rank for YouTube video to text and also video to text. Technically, most of the vectorization systems that you possibly can use won't ever tell you that YouTube and the video can't be synonym. Mostly it won't be, because you will be mostly using documents, and documents don't use these things like they are synonyms. But in the query, it's not like working like that. That's why I'm telling always, query semantics is always more important than natural language semantics. And YouTube video and just the video, they mostly mean the same thing in the queries. That's why YouTube video to text or YouTube to text and video to text, they are synonyms in the query language. And that's why the index and the relevance changes according to that. That's one of the key points when it comes to the relevance.
Nice. Yeah. And one of the ways, and we'll look at some patents on query rewriting, query augmentation, query expansion that get into that a little bit more. But one of the things that you can do is just build an understanding of what the search engine is doing by just querying it and putting in those two queries and seeing what are the documents that are ranking, and are we seeing video and YouTube both being shown in the search results. Obviously, having YouTube in the title is going to give the query and documents that contain YouTube a boost and a lift. But if you see the context being kind of combined and seeing both sets of documents, that's a clue that these queries are viewed as being synonymous to Google. So on that topic, why don't we pull up, this is one of the first patents that you linked for information retrieval. It's called ranking search results. Let's pull it up.
Ranking search results based on, ranking search results. Yeah, this is a very fundamental patent. It is from Navneet Panda, the person who named the Panda update by Google. And this is mainly about the brand search demand. Many people also focused on this after the helpful content update. But since 2019, in my case studies, and also when I announced the topical authority as a methodology of ranking too, for achieving a ranking state on a higher level, I directly stated that you should be mentioning Google that, or you should be creating enough level of signal to Google that your brand is always a relevance attributor, which means if your brand is appearing in the autocomplete, or if your brand is appearing in related search terms, or if your brand is appearing together with the service that people look for in the queries, in the documents, and in their query processing system, it means that you are becoming a synonym to the service that they are looking for or the product that they are looking for, which means all these navigational queries actually signal a certain level of quality. And I guess the quality score concept has been explained in this patent too. And it basically states that if there are enough level of navigational queries about your brand and your site, it means your site is not spammy. But this is a very old one. Old methodology, because these were the days that PBMs and the link market were ruling the Google SERP. And most of the time, even if you rank with the pure page rank, you can't force people to search for your name. That's why they were using these navigational queries and brand search demand and brand entitization like a PowerPoint or like a cleaning separation for themselves. Even today in the Google Merchant Center, you can see that there is a brand popularity comparison. They added it like 2 months ago. Today it is more obvious. They compare brand popularity in that niche to the other brands. But they are doing it for a long time. The page rank and brand search demand, they are always actually a lifebelt for websites. So this one is about that.
Yeah. There's also other patents about this too, where they look at the total amount of exact match, let's say keywords that a website is gaining traffic for in the search demand, and they compare it to the navigational and branded signal. And the ratios there are measured and studied. So if a brand has very weak brand signal relative to its exact match traffic, maybe because it's an SEO honeypot, it's built a lot of content, but no one recognizes that brand as being significant. That is I think one of the signals that they use for HCU to demote sites. So it's really important.
They
And
will, they will do that definitely. I mean, if you don't have any product or service, you won't have any that much navigational query anyway. So it means you are expendable.
Yeah, one of my friends, Andrew Prince, who's the head of SEO at Rocket Mortgage, Rocket Homes, huge brand. They ran a Super Bowl ad, and their Super Bowl ad got them a ton of people searching for Rocket. And typically when we think of Rocket, we think of, what do we think of? Like the Falcon 5, we think of rocketry. And so for a period of time after that Super Bowl ad ran, because of its huge reach and scope, Rocket Mortgages, they had so much brand signal coming from that it did change the rankings and the search results. So we're seeing that, most people I think don't fully understand that everything you put into the search query box actually changes the search engine. It has a direct response to the rankings. So if you put in a query, if you put in a brand query, you're actually enhancing the rankings of that brand. And you can also affect the rich snippets and the PAAs as well.
True. We were doing this fake query creation automatically in 2021, 2022. It was working really fine. But Google Chrome always has a team of basically fake traffic controller team, and they're able to understand mostly who creates a query genuinely and who actually just manipulates that. In the old times, we were able to create fake query paths. Query path is a concept from patents and also from my framework. It means if you search for banana, then the apple, and if there is a site that ranks for both of them with a common attribute of these two things, it gets a ranking boost. And imagine that they search for banana, apple, and then your name. It means that you are related to actually these fruits with a common attribute, again, either as a consumer or either as a cook, etc. We were able to do that. Even Google was actually triggering search features like, did you mean this? Imagine they search for Manick and Google says, did you mean apple? Or do you mean banana? We were able to trigger them, but for the last 2 years, I can say that they are pretty good at filtering some of these. Even if Ahrefs is not that good, Ahrefs data can be bloated very easily for any query search estimation. But when it comes to Google, they're slightly better on that.
Yeah, I think some of those techniques were used to do the Google bomb of George W. Bush being a miserable failure, associating him with that concept very successfully. So yeah, it's funny. The Google search team has to fight against all this stuff. And actually, this might be an interesting place to sort of talk about filtering click spam. Just briefly, I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's a concept that there are patents that speak to that specifically. And so what we're looking at here is this patent brain. It's a GPT that's been trained on 9,500 Google patents. So back to patent brain, it has 9,500 Google patents. And obviously, going through them one by one, it's instructive, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to query across everything and ask powerful questions like, how does Google filter click spam? To understand what are some of the methodologies that they're using. So I welcome you guys to use this and to ask the questions that you're curious about how do the patents talk about this, and get your answers. So this has been pretty interesting for us to see some of the mechanisms that they're using. So Koray, to your point, this sort of technology has just become more and more refined as they've had to prevent bad actors from being able to fully manipulate the search results. But yeah, Battenberg gives us a lot of insight about that.
True.
As you were talking about query rewriting and related queries, correlated queries, there are a lot of patents that actually talk about those things specifically, and I wish I had them organized that way that I could just pull them up as we were talking about them.
That's okay.
But here's one that's called dynamic search results.
Like again, the nominate panda actually, basically it focuses on the user signals to refine or to fine tune the results as much as possible based on the identity of the user. A little bit also about actually personalization, but this also helps mainly for ad hoc retrieval, which means it tries to measure the user behaviors from the information retrieval point of view, which means like query per second, query per session, average session duration, let's say, per specific search feature. It tries to create the best possible actually result page for that specific behavior or the fine-tuned result. Again, now need Panda. So anything from him is pretty fundamental, I can say. He was working in the Google in the era of Amit Singhal. So everything he does is approved by Amit, which also means he is following a kind of rule-based system rather than more like machine learning system too, I can say. So it's more controllable because of that.
Speaking about Amit Singhal, this is another patent related to query rewriting. And this is actually from Amit. He's on here.
Yes, this one is really important. I can say the Monica there, I'm not sure, probably Monica, maybe you can open her patents later too. She's, if the right Monica that I remember, she is also important too, I can say. Amit Singhal's patents, especially if they are correlated with PAL-HAR, they become more important. But technically, this is about query classification based on the similarity or the semantic information that we have, which also was the reason that I integrated the zero search volume queries to the actual my first topical authority case study. Because we have observed whenever we actually try to rank for zero search volume queries, we rank for it and we also increase our ranking for the ones with the search demand. It was the main reason for that is there are like three main fundamental things for actually query augmentation. One is the query vocabulary, what queries users basically are searching. Second one is the document statistics or document vocabulary, which means what type of query phrases or their phrasification or phrasified versions are used. The third one is the conceptual connections. Technically, actually, there was a very good example for that. Maybe I can give it very simple. Let's say there is an e-com site for tote bags. This is actually a real case, I can say.
Okay.
There are two pages. As much as I can remember, I will give the example. One of these two pages is a category page. The other one is the product page. The category page is trying to rank for, as much as I can remember, it is trying to rank for large tote bags. The other one, at the same time, it is trying to rank actually for medium tote bags. But when we look at the results, the medium tote bag is actually ranking for quality tote bag, not the medium. And the large tote bags, it is actually also ranking for medium-sized tote bag. So if you think carefully, it makes sense because when you say just medium tote bag, the phrase medium, let's look at the conceptual connections there. It can be either small, medium, large, or it can be also low, medium, high. That's why when you say medium tote bag, it ranks for the high quality tote bag because nobody searches for low quality tote bag. And Google thinks that the medium there should be rewritten as high, not as the large. When it comes to the category page actually that we have, at the same time, even if we have the specific concept there, let's say the large tote bag, it ranks for the medium size tote bag because previous section, the medium tote bag doesn't mention the size word in it. So if you leave these type of subtle differences to Google, they can actually vectorize or augment or rewrite everything in the wrong way. The main also another problem was the click, because when they ranked the medium tote bag page for high quality tote bag, it got the click. The moment that a user clicks on your page from Google search, and if there is a positive ranking signal there, which means if the user click signal was positive, good luck with that. I mean, Google doesn't give up from that historical data unless there is a core update. So solving that cannibalization takes really long time, because even if you write your content properly, Google doesn't forget what type of a click you got from what query phrase. They still think that you are relevant to that query, even if content has been changed 100%. And that part is about historical data. A wrong relevance or a low quality can be signaled through the clicks or user behaviors. In the long term, it's the most important signal that you can get.
Yeah. So speaking of historical data, let's transition. Let's talk about this one.
The Jeffrey Dean, again, also Monica is there. There is a Turkish there, Olcan. I also talked to him a few times. He tells nothing. And the Paul Har, of course, is there too. This is also one of the important one, but this is slightly different. When you look at the query-related patterns, either they are about classifying the queries, or either they are about rewriting and augmenting the queries, or either they are about judging the documents based on the queries. This one is about both of them, which means both queries and the documents are actually judged here, but this is a very early time section, which is about actually segmenting your page and actually understanding what type of a query variation you can be relevant to. This was the moment that they started to think that they should be creating a hierarchy based on the lexemes or semantic units of the queries, because a page can be relevant accidentally, can be relevant to the multiple different levels of the same lemmatization or different groups from that, let's say, the query. That's why I'm not sure either I have shared that pattern with you, but that's why there is one more, which is about phrase taxonomy. They started to create a hierarchy based on the possible length of a query. The example that they were giving was underwater camera, like underwater camera, underwater digital camera, underwater digital camera under $100, underwater digital camera under $100 for kids, etc. So whenever I say a query, it goes longer, it goes more specific. They started to create a kind of hierarchy based on these qualifiers. Then every one of these qualifiers, like for kids under $100, underwater, or digital, they started to implement these variations to the other entities too. And it was the moment that they realized slowly and gradually that instead of dealing with the phrases, actually using a kind of vectorization or entitization helps a lot for decreasing the cost.
Cool. This is another pattern.
You're also right. History data means historical data there.
Yeah.
Which what we talk about.
And we were talking about that. And this one also gets into how they analyze the activity of users, what results they're clicking on from what particular sites to come up with this site quality score here. Do you want to talk a little bit about this, Koray?
Yeah, again, whenever you see Navneet Panda, it's always about navigational queries or navigational clicks, which also explains why he is relevant to the Now Boost eventually, because Now Boost is, in a way, a kind of hybrid ranking factor like topicality, popularity, and also page rank, three different things, which means the clicks, links, and also the direct branded queries. They are all merged together as Now Boost. And this one too, basically a continuation pattern of Navneet Panda for the previous ones. Even some of the images, maybe one of the images should be same with the previous ones. And this one too basically tries to judge the aside based on the user behaviors. And one thing there, determine a count of unique queries that are categorized as being direct to a particular site. This is directly correlating with Google API leak. There too, they also mention if a page has more queries that they are ranking for or related to, it also increases the score. They say just score, by the way. Probably quality score they mean there. But most problem, what else score they can use there?
Yeah,
but
this is something that we see a ton of. Like, so inside Search Atlas, we have this GSC performance tool, and we're able to see essentially every page on the website. We show the amount of impressions versus the amount of keywords the page ranks for. And there's a very distinct pattern, which is the pages that perform well rank for a lot of unique queries. It's exactly what we see here. And
That's true.
there you can see there's a mathematical equation that they have for coming up with the site quality score based on this. So if you got it,
if I go an advanced point for if the audience doesn't judge me, also there is something that they call synthetic queries. In the later stage, they realize that they don't even need the user queries. Users like you and me, they don't wait it. In some cases, they call users like you and me, like unicorn, or let's
unicorn
say
clicks. Yeah.
unicorn clicks, and also in the patents they call it slightly different. It's like, I don't remember exactly, but it was about creating categorical quality score for the search results. They are judging some of the clicks heavier than the others. But when it comes to the synthetic queries or synthetic user behaviors, they can also generate tons of data based on their algorithms, and they can judge the results with their own synthetic data. This is mostly what they do with the latest AI answers or AI mode as well, technically, but it's also created around 2014 and 2015.
So Koray, question, like, let's go back to the unicorn concept. What do you think makes us unicorn users, unicorn clicks?
If you have a long-term search history about a subject, and if they see that lots of search journeys keep appearing for these entities or these queries, they will directly be assigning an interest area for you. You can even check it from your Google Chrome. You can filter all of your search journeys, and you can filter all of your interest areas that Google thinks that you are interested in. And if you do a click on that, basically you will be giving a heavier and more meaningful click, which is a very good understanding, because that also explains why the CTR manipulation becomes harder, because most of the time we use very new browser instances, and we don't have that much. But with the new technologies in the China, with these new click farms, I don't know, they also create actually pretty good data there. But personally, I didn't get a chance to test any of them, because getting any partner from China is not that easy. But I wish I could test one day.
Yeah. And also, I think it's, to your point, history and quality associated with the searcher. So the cookie that is basically bringing the clicks to Google. What is the authenticity of that? What is the reputation of that? And there's a lot of different ways that they evaluate that. And so it's actually good. It's a good system that they've built, because what we find is that when we look at the search, the ranking signals that are used for Google versus Bing, we see that Google's are significantly more robust than what Bing are using, and I think that's to the credit of Google and the quality of the search
I believe Bing trusts. In my opinion, Bing trusts faster. I mean, as a new site, you can get faster rankings there thanks to the freshness as well. And a Bing index size is very much smaller. That also affects the situation, because when you leap or jump into the index in Google, you are in an ocean. Proving your quality there will be taking longer time, because you have more candidates to be compared. But in big index, maybe it is 50 times smaller, which is normal to take less time to show your value.
Yeah, and the Bing index seems to be more responsive to backlinks. If you've got authority built to pages, it's a stronger signal. And from what we've observed, once something is on page one of Bing, they're more leaning toward the click signals of what happens on that page, way more so than Google. So they pretty much just trust the search behavior to guide the rankings, more so than Google will. If Google feels that there's a search result that has more historical data or higher quality content or is more aligned to the user's query, it'll rank higher, even if the near-term clicks that are taking place would sort of suggest that another search result should take its place. They're less likely to move things up and down, which is
good. I agree on that.
All right, let's. This is a legendary patent from David C. Tyler.
David C.
I know you love this one.
Yeah, this is. I already have a concept in my framework from here, but I changed the concept, of course. This one, that same phrase has been used here differently. I changed it to a different angle. But this is about actual document representation. Imagine that there is one document and you want to represent that document with one relevant phrase. What that phrase would be. It's about actually decreasing the dimensionality or dimension number of relevance for one document. This again similar to what we talked at the beginning, like dense retrieval, because rather than focusing on, let's say, 500 unique words in a document to rank it, you just focus on one word and you say that this document is mainly about this word and its topic. This is technically about understanding and dividing entire web into the different knowledge domains and distributing documents to these knowledge domains based on their represented context. That's why they try to actually judge the document based on the contextual balance, and that's why they also say that a document should be about one main thing, not two things. For that specific one main thing, they usually try to judge the document from the beginning phase, of course. We mainly know it from actually Stephen the Baker. In this one, they state that if you have two different type of context, they are fighting with each other, you might not be in one of the knowledge domains, but you can be between both of them, which means you will decrease your rankings in that case for both of them, but you'll be appearing in both of them too. But if you consolidate your context for one of them only, you directly go into the center in that specific knowledge domain. This is a very good explanation for what they were actually doing, and it's actually an early patent in terms of application, but it is directly overlapping with the knowledge graph announcement too. So and also the David, I'm getting old. The David Hugh, I guess I couldn't remember the exact name, but he actually browsable fact repository. Andrew Hook, now I remember. He also created the understanding search engine design the same year with David C. Tyler. Probably they were working together. But if you look at the 1999 until to the 2016, you are going to see that they have a very clear line. After Amit Singhal, it starts to go to the neural networks, deep learning, and many other things. But after also Transformers announcement, again, they have a new direction and horizon as well.
Koray, why do you think it is that Google, their search engine is more sensitive to topical relevance, topical authority than Bing?
The first, rather than the Bing, I will say that why do they increase the weight of semantics in the ranking system? Mainly because the main difference between Bing and Google is the first is data amount. Bing doesn't have the same amount of data as the Google, which means even if you have a better algorithm than Google, it won't be performing better than Google because an algorithm can perform better based on the amount of data. The second thing is, again, index size. For instance, you also say that the links perform faster and better in the Bing because their also link graph is smaller. In Google, when you link from somewhere to somewhere, they have like trillions of link connections between the documents there, and the page rank will be calculated with maybe 9 different iterations until they assign a number to you. But in the Bing, it's 50 times smaller index, which means when you create one link, its actual size in that link graph is bigger. When it comes to the topical relevance, authority, or many other names that we use for the same thing, for that angle, it's cheaper. That's why I actually created the concept of cost of retrieval to explain it. When I also created this topical authority is equal to topical coverage multiplied with historical data divided with cost of retrieval. It's about mainly actually your cost. If you are too costly for a search engine to process your content, to test your pages for 3 or 4 months, and also trusting you for feature snippets and judging you again based on the click behaviors, it's too much money they are spending for just actually understanding your site eventually. And even the last week, Sundar Pichai actually signed an energy deal, a new energy deal. I expect that they will be increasing what they do based on these new chips. That's why they keep signing energy deals all the time. And that's one of the reasons that they focus on semantics heavier, because the first thing there is links, you can control it, but semantics is under their control. The second thing is links are a kind of assumption. Imagine this, you rank a page as a blind librarian because it has many links, but you don't know why it has that links. Maybe it is because of a scandal, or maybe it is just fake links or fake page rank. But when you look at the semantics, when you understand the semantics, you know that the first-hand data deserves to rank, not because somebody else tells you to rank. So they like to actually control their ranking system rather than relying on the signals that we give by manipulating them. It's a long journey for them for all these things. And if you create a threshold like brand search demand threshold, let's say, page rank threshold, and if you give the rest to the semantics, it's very much easier for them because most brands can't even reach out to these thresholds. That means that they can stay in the supplementary index easily, and they can just play with the 1% of the sites to rank and satisfy the clicks, which means it already decreases cost 100 times, and still they satisfy the users, which is very easier. But if we rank every site that get just the links, it is so heavily happening every day. They can't change the SERP every day. It's not that reliable, or they don't have resources to change the SERP heavily every day. That's why they have core updates. They prioritize a source over another until next core update. That second website is always outranked by the first one. It doesn't change that much.
Yeah,
I can say it makes things easier for the engineers.
Yeah, there's also like a big problem with only using PageRank to rank documents, which is that you do have high quality informational sources. They introduced a concept of knowledge-based trust, and domains basically demonstrating their authority just by their own content and their information responsiveness.
Sure.
And it's important that new sources be able to make it to page one of Google to satisfy user queries, even though they don't have a lot of PageRank, because they're just great information sources that are factually accurate and comprehensive in a particular knowledge domain. So I think it makes search more democratic and improves the quality. Because historically,
it also comes to the point of basically these 3 layers that I mentioned earlier too, like document ranking, passage ranking, and passage generation. 3 layers of actually search engine optimization today. Because when you rank a document because of the high page rank, that specific document might not be having enough level of passages to answer the same query, and it's augmented other versions. This new thing that they call query fan out is nothing else than actually query augmentation and query networks, as we call in our framework. When you have a query network and when you have lots of different question possibilities that can be generated from that, all these query variations, if you rank something just because of high page rank, let's say you rank the document, but there is no passage to rank for all these augmented versions, which means document is useless. Right. If you rank the document and it also has all these passages, as you mentioned too, for that unique information and democratization of search, it means you handle 2 things there. It has enough level of relevance to the old augmented versions as passages. It also has enough level of, let's say, click signals, trust signals, brand signals as a document. But when it comes to the AI section, which is about mainly generating the passage, it also means it has to be accurate. That's the hardest part to understand, basically, because it directly relies on consensus and consensus creation and understanding, which means you always need to be in the truth range too, so that also you can be cited in that angle or in that section.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic of
definitely
probabilistic consensus through consuming information and authority information to determine what is truth. And yeah, it is interesting. Even like take a fact like Barack Obama, where was he born? You know, 99% of sources say he's American. 1% of sources say he was born in Africa, and probably somewhere in that factual repository. I mean, obviously they have like their truthy data set of like a database of facts to prevent this sort of manipulation, but
true. But Google always will rank the safe answer, not the truth. They don't want any problem there. That's why I also created even a GPT. I call it safe answer generator. If you have anything like controversy, just go with the safe answer, which means give perspectives. That's one of the things that the difference between today's SEO and the old SEO. The old SEOs, sometimes authors come and tell me that, yeah, but we don't have this service. I can answer that question. Why? Then just say that you don't have that service. Still, that's an answer. You don't have to answer every question positively, okay? Just you can give the perspectives, and you can say that some sources say X, some sources say Z, and still you can stay relevant and you can stay in the safe zone without having any problem.
Yeah, makes sense. Koray, one interesting topic is around authorship, and
Mm.
we see a lot of patents about authorship.
Mhm.
Um, and in our research, in our work, I don't know that I've seen a strong impact from authors and authorship and creating that around content. What have you observed in the work that you've done? Have you seen a powerful influence by?
Yeah, I have seen, but authorship, usually people think that it is just about an author biography and some social media profiles. But what we do is different than that. We always turn author into an entity. If you check the Google Knowledge Graph API, and if you search for your name, and if you don't see any result there for your name, it means you are not an entity. It doesn't matter that much. There are Metcalf even said once actually, author can affect the rankings, especially for in-depth articles or very long form documents, for the things that require actually expertise. So there are multi angles here. The first thing is there is a query processor that judges every query and classifies them like this. Is it an experience related query? If it is, rank the forums. If it is not, it's about the facts, which means rank the expert. And in that case, I suggest the web pages to have both of these angles. Have a forum section on your pages, give the user opinions and different perspectives in different forms, by the way, just video answers or text answers, etc. Allow users directly to ask questions and allow them to get answers from others too. Have a forum angle there. Then also give the expert opinion and expert, let's say, ideas. But while doing it, you should turn your expert also into an entity. And that's why in my Chiang Mai speech, I gave the Mongol languages as an example. We turned every author to a linguist in the eyes of search engine. That's why we were able to get the help from them. Reputation score is true. There is also a patent about, I believe, it even mentions the topic authority for authors. Also, if you check that it is, if you go, maybe you also check sometimes, do you remember, when you click to the three dots in the Google search, it opens about this source panel. There, for instance, sometimes you can actually see author, not the site. In Forbes, sometimes it happens. They give the name of the author as the main source. And if you search for the name of the author, it gives you articles from X person as a new search snippet or the feature there, which means they know that author. If you look at the latest patents about the AI search too, there is one. It's called in-depth article score. At least they have that specific score. They even use the abbreviation of IDA score. There too, they also mention the author and authorship for one more time. So I would say it is important, but you should check either it is an entity or not.
Yeah. And it seems like for some search queries, this could be significant. It could be a important driver of what we see in the SERPs, and for others, maybe not as much. I think it'd be a good experiment to take a concept that has, like, for example, yourself or me, we both have, I think you have an entity graph for yourself, and as do I.
Yeah.
If we write an article about something and we have like a almost very similar article published, but without our author bio on the page, observe the impact that it has on rankings and see what happens. It can be a cool test.
That's correct. You can definitely see the benefit of that, because if you keep appearing in the SERP, because there are also vectors there too, your name keeps appearing with some other vectors to create a topicality. If that happens one more time, even that actually increases the relevance. And also you have queries, search queries that search your name, like Manick SEO or Manick Bahan SEO tool, etc. And if these queries directly assigned to your entity, and if you write about similar other queries, directly will be affecting your ranking as well. But again, this is the kinds of, at the same time, this is a kind of long-term effect too. In the news industry, we know that it is a better signal, but in the regular other industries, it might be a kind of more indirect or long-term signal too.
There's weak signals, there's strong signals. Like in physics, we have the weak force and the strong force. And when we look at all the different forces, we have to sort of parse through it and say, what's the impact of these forces? And so one of the methodologies that I really like, I call it Petri dish SEO, and a lot of great SEOs like Kyle Roof and a lot of other people as well have done experiments around this, probably James Dooley as well. Basically creating creating content on Google, and then essentially like taking a SERP that you fully control, where all the search results are yours.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, with the fake words, actually. You create 20 sites for a fake English word, and it's your closed environment to test the sites, basically.
exactly.
Let's say you create a fake fruit. You add all the data, and you try to do an experiment there. I guess this is yours.
Yeah, this
Snack.
is one that we did. Snackachusets. It's the 51st state of the United States, Snackachusets. You haven't heard of it before?
Yeah, not yet. Well done.
A hungriest city. And so we just, this was an experiment to see, what would rank. And what's interesting is here you can see these images that we created. And when you ask Gemini about Snackachusets, it will tell you about like the time the ferry leaves and the type of boat that it is. And it's amazing. It's basically summarizing all this information. So that was cool to see that. But the next question is, what happens when the consensus diverges? What happens when source number 3 says the time the ferry departs is 8 a.m. instead of 7 a.m.? What happens in Gemini? How do we alter its perspective around what the consensus is? So there's some experiments.
For news industry, I did a speech before to explain this, and I created some actually concepts there. One thing was fuzzy logic, because the fuzzy logic means that nothing is wrong and nothing is true. There is always a range there. And there is actually a research paper from Amelia Marion and Minji Wu. And this research paper is from 2007. But all the featured snippet and passage-related patents, owners like Stephen De Baker or Srinivasan Venkatahari, who is also working as a vice president of the search intelligence team in Google, and behind directly the AI mode and search generative experience, they always cite this research. The research name is also Collaborating Multiple Answers from Web basically. And they are using the example of the Honda Civic. They ask in the research paper, when you ask for the 2007 Honda Civic mileage, even Honda official site has different answers. One page says 52, other page says 57. So if you believe that Honda says the truth, even Honda is contradicting with itself. So what you are going to do in that case? The solution that they found was creating a kind of range. I called it truth range in my own understanding. And if you are outside of that range, it means you are wrong. If you are in that one, they rank you. But this usually works, as they also stated, for numbers or numeric things. But when it comes to the more other, let's say, emotions, like let's say you say that Turkey is hot, someone else says that it's cold. And these words are not numbers. One methodology there was numerizing every word, which didn't work that much. The second methodology was perspectives. Technically, they accept everything a kind of like truth, and they try to give, as long as it is close to true in that fuzzy logic, they give it. But if it is very, very different, then they don't actually give that. But it is taking time. You remember the first featured snippets, I believe it was saying horses have 5 legs and Barack Obama is a communist and will do a coup, or the aliens already invaded the world, etc. They were lots of silly featured snippets, because it is how open information extraction actually works. And it's something that will be taking time.
You kind of have to feel a little bit bad for Google. They have like billions and billions of search queries, and then we find one that someone figures out how to manipulate, and then everyone just throws tomatoes at them and say how bad they are. Poor guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Nobody thanks them for actually fixing trillions queries.
No. Exactly. Lily Ray posts something on Twitter and it blows up, and then everyone, sees sees where Google sucks, and then everyone lampoons them. But they're multi-billion-dollar.
I was reading Bill actually once, and he was saying that he was explaining one of his memoirs, and he was saying that other day I was sitting with my sister and mother, and they were saying that they found something that they look for in Google, and they were happy. Then he was saying that, let's say 5 years ago, when Google gives us an answer, we were happy. Now they are saying everything, but we are not satisfied with anything about that. It's basically expectations change very quickly.
For sure. It's become cool to hate on Google. And people now, would rather, praise like the LLMs and ChatGPT. So that might be a nice segue into chat. And so, you and I were talking about this search landscape becoming more fragmented, and you know, relevance configuration, relevance engineering now doesn't just include optimizing and thinking just about Google. I think you and I both believe in holistic, right? We both are holistic SEOs. We would call ourselves that. But in what ways is optimizing for LLMs similar to Google, and in what ways is it different?
Sure. I mean, that's one of the main angles to actually always understand, because if I would be today, for instance, if I would be having the Google's own, let's say, the knowledge graph, the full knowledge graph, imagine I have from Google, and I also know what type of a language model they use for what topic, because Pathway language model was about that. They choose a different language model according to the knowledge domain in that case. If you will be having them, we would definitely be able to rank very fast. The rest is about basically just, this is your LLM, let's say, this is Google's, and you are trying to just bring these things like this. But if it is like that, then you will be ranking a little bit in that case. That's the always hard part to automate with the AI, I can say.
Mm-hmm. And so Koray, when we think about like the future of how the internet looks in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years and beyond, one of the things that, you know, I think we've touched on, or we've talked about a bit, is web pages changing. Like, web pages used to be a place where we were hosting information, a source of an answer to a query, and the journey to find that information and discover it. And now they're more really serving as a source of truth the LLMs are referencing to train the LLM. And so over time, web pages just become the way that we verbalize our source context and the knowledge base that we have to communicate, and we feed it into the LLM. What is the role of web pages in the internet in the future?
I believe still it will be around, because it has to be. The main thing is, if LLMs will be learning from the web pages, somebody should be giving them actually what is happening on the world today. And at the same time, in my opinion, it's not like just about the truth or the information, because first of all, if you are providing a service, software or product or consultation or a community, paid community or whatever, you are actually safe as a website or as a web page. When it comes to the sites like encyclopedia, like Wikidata or Wikipedia or WikiHow, etc., these might be a little bit under the danger, but I believe the moment that they are that, we might not be able to get an answer from also large language models too, because if there is a new product, let's say they find flying cars tomorrow, and you ask a question with the how to. If you ask such a question, then they will need to find a web page for it eventually. So I believe there will be a new monetization methodology eventually. Cloudflare already created something like pay-per-crawl. Whenever an agent or an LLM crawls the site, they just want them to pay to the site. The second thing is, we also talked about it, I guess, the other day. In my opinion, people might actually like getting approvals from the web resources. Like, if you ask a question about symptoms of the cancer, they might like to see which doctor reviewed the LLM's answer there, or that form of that answer. And you might actually choose authors or websites directly from these LLMs by stating that, give me results from these knowledge providers, and give me results, especially if these doctors are reviewed your answers, for example. That's why the knowledge domain experts and knowledge domain content creators actually can be integrated into these new LLM-based models too. And the last, they can also create their own chatbot. They can create a chatbot based on their own knowledge, and they can sell it actually all the time too. I mean,
sure.
You know, like we have a distant friend, I can say. I'm glad that distant, because technically and personally, I hate from mythology or this astrology, whatever they call. And that friend actually, that of us, she checks actually tarot from ChatGPT. And ChatGPT says her, today your tarot says that you will have an accident. She even doesn't go to work for working. I mean, it's like it goes to somewhere different here, but I believe, let's say you are a tarot information site, and with your information, you can create a chatbot. And people who are really enthusiastic about tarot thing, they can actually use your bot instead of the others too. So I believe it will be working both way with new monetization methods, because they will need to insert ads to the AI answers, definitely. And if they want to insert ads there, they also want them to be clicked. And if they only want ads to be clicked, DOJ again will be filing another lawsuit. So that's why I believe the organic results and the ads, they will be clicked together in the world of LLMs. So either they will pay per crawl, or either they will pay based on the visibility or something else. So we will find a new balance, I am sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to work. The pay per crawl, obviously, to crawl information that like if Google and the LLMs have to pay for a crawl, if the information value is very low, if it's information that they already have in the knowledge base, there's no incremental gain. There's no information gain there.
Sure.
So if they have to be
Also,
more choosy,
because
that's actually a form of increasing cost of retrieval, is to have to pay for a crawl, right? And so
also, it's just a Cloudflare thing. I mean, an LLM also will not say something like, yeah, we crawled you, but we learned nothing. We crawled you and your information was wrong. So, so there are many questions or many different rules to fix or to handle there. I believe through the time we are going to be finding a balance there, because either information sources on the web will be that. If they are that, LLMs will be useless after a certain amount of time, because they won't be having the latest drug, they won't be having the latest investment tool or anything. They won't know it. There won't be a web because of eventually. So they have to coexist in that case. And I believe ChatGPT, for instance, they were sending way much more click in May. In June, they decreased it. We changed nothing on our sites. I have like over 800 sites in my Search Console accounts. All of them have seen the peak on the May, and in the June, all of them actually lost compared to the May. We didn't do anything for it. I mean, ChatGPT adjusts.
Or ChatGPT?
Just ChatGPT. Gemini is way much less, like 40 times less than ChatGPT, I can say. Mainly, even Perplexity sends more than Gemini most of the time. It doesn't mean that people use Gemini less. It means Gemini just sends less click to us.
Right. And Gemini likes to send clicks back into its own and back into Google. We've seen actually a significant surge in LLM visibility. And I think it's because each month as we go, we're not sort of a static ship. We're constantly building more authority and credibility specifically to push information into LLM. So I didn't see that drop. But it's interesting if you're seeing that it's there. I think that like, as people like think about the future of how does SEO interface with LLMs, not just today, but like in 5 years, 10 years, I think one of the most important things that we have to think about is how do we not make our content commodity content and reverbalize the same information that's been known in an encyclopedia in like 1990, right? We have to bring in new proprietary data. We have to bring in new perspectives, new insight, things that other people haven't already said and stated, something different, and provide that. And as we do that, also build our website to really be the authority to continue building those authority signals. And that comes through off-page. It comes from not even SEO. It comes from building a brand that people want to come back to because it has some real enduring value. And in that, there's also a role to play for community and in person to create those connections that bring people back to your site.
I guess it comes back to again Navneet Panda actually. I mean, again, it comes back to the brand or these navigational things just about you. So he was right to organize the web in that way with that series of Panda updates, basically.
Yeah, he was very much a forward thinker, and I think those algorithms are going to do beautifully. I'm also wondering like exactly how things shake out. I think in the industry in SEO, there's been sort of over the last 2 years or so, a backpedaling away from off-page where people are like stopped focusing as much on building backlinks and talking about, trading backlinks and how do I get more backlinks and authority backlinks and stuff, and PBNs also, and shifting toward more creating high quality web pages and websites. And I think that's overall been positive for the industry. But I wonder if that trend is going to reverse as sites see the need to rebuild their authority signals and increase them.
In my opinion, the page rank is heart of SEO. It can't go away. You can't take it away or outside of SEO. Links always are gonna be important ranking signal. You can't destroy it from it. Internal links, external links, doesn't matter. Either internal page rank or external page rank is gonna be staying as a fundamental. And another thing is that the Google, if the information difference is not that important, they are going to be looking at basically the page rank difference, and they will prioritize the high page rank source always. So I wouldn't ignore the links at all, but you might not see enough level of results if, as I stated, if you don't have these passages for these query contexts. Even if they rank you, you won't be able to rank for many different angles and the context, and they will switch you with something else. So that's why to stay there as holistic SEO mindset too, you should always optimize for everything. But the links, I mean, I wouldn't say anything unfair to the links. It's always are gonna be one of the most important signals. There is no way of organizing a proper information retrieval system without the links.
You hear that, link builders? If you go into the comments, don't blast us. We're pro links. Links are cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Koray. Thanks for the time today. This was really fun. Enjoy picking your brain about this stuff. It's super interesting and insightful. And guys, in the comments, let us know what was the most interesting patent that we went through. If you have questions about the patents, if you've got questions about other topics that you want to learn more about and you want us to focus on, just let us know. And until next time, it's been real. Koray, thank you again.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.